Good morning, boys and girls. I thought today we would read a fun book about polar bears. And then after this read aloud, I'm going to teach you how to draw a background and landscape, and then a simple polar bear. All right, here we go. This is called Swim, Polar Bear, Swim. It's by Joan Stimson and illustrated by Meg Rutherford. Polar Star was the brightest, liveliest bear cub in the entire Arctic. He could turn somersaults almost before he could crawl. He never stopped asking questions. And at bedtime, after the first story, he wanted another and another. Polar Moon found it hard to keep up. Sometimes she complained. But at the end of the day, she always said the same thing. You are the most wonderful bear cub, and I am the proudest mother in the world. When spring came, Polar Moon led Polar Star down to the ocean. It's time for your first swimming lesson, she told him. Polar Star dipped his paw in the water. Is it deep? Is it slippery? And what shall I do with my paws? He asked. Jump up, said Polar Moon, and I'll show you. As soon as Polar Moon started to swim, Polar Star quivered with excitement. Can I try? He asked. And without waiting for an answer, he slid down his mother's nose and into the water. Polar Star gasped. Polar Star spluttered. And, although Mom scooped him up in no time at all, he felt sure he had swallowed the ocean. Never mind, said Polar Moon at bedtime. You are still a wonderful bear cub. Now, let's have a story, and we can try again tomorrow. The next day, Polar Star didn't feel so brave. He clung to his mother until her fur hurt. And when at last he allowed himself to be lowered into the water, he flapped and floundered. My paws keep sinking, he wailed, and he hung on even tighter. You are a wonderful bear cub, yawned Polar Moon at bedtime. But how my back aches. Days passed and Polar Star grew more and more disappointed. He'd never found anything difficult before, and the more he worried about swimming, the more unhappy he felt in the water. Mom was disappointed too. She wanted to help, but didn't know how. Then one night, Polar Moon was so tired she spoke without thinking. Oh, Polar Star, I do wish you could swim. All through the dark, Polar Star lay awake. He tried to remember the last time Mom had said she was proud of him. And when Polar Moon came in next morning, Polar Star was buried under the bedclothes. Whatever's wrong? Asked Polar Moon. For a long time there was no reply, but at last Polar Star spoke up. If I don't learn how to swim today, he said in a muffled voice, will you still love me? Polar Moon pulled back the covers and held her cub. Oh, Polar Star, she cried, it doesn't matter if you never learn to swim. I shall love you to the end of the ocean. Polar Star bounded out of bed with a somersault. All through breakfast he asked questions, and later that morning Polar Star and Polar Moon slid gently into the water. And at first Polar Star held tightly to Mom's tail, but as he remembered what she had told him, he relaxed and without thinking let go. Where are you? Cried Polar Moon in a panic. She dived deep to rescue him, but Polar Star was nowhere to be found. At last Polar Moon came to the surface. "I'm here," panted Polar Star in the distance, "and my paws aren't sinking," he told her proudly. Then with a splash and a flash of silver, Polar Star gave a great whoop of delight. I'm swimming," he called, and his cry seemed to echo to the end of the ocean. The end. Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Peffer. This week we're going to have a read aloud of Swim Polar Bear Swim. So if you haven't gotten to that read aloud yet, you might want to watch that first. And then what we're going to do is draw a polar bear and make a landscape, and then we're going to cut the polar bear out and add it to our landscape. Okay, enjoy. These are the supplies that you're going to need for the project. You're going to need 2 pieces of paper, hopefully the same size. You're going to need a pair of scissors and glue if you want to cut it out and glue it down, a pencil, and if you have a black marker or even a black crayon or a black oil pastel. If you want to color your landscape, you can use crayons, you can use colored pencils, you could watercolor it, really whatever supplies you need. All right, so what we're gonna do first is draw the polar bear. And if you wanna do it first in pencil and then trace it in black crayon or black marker, you can do that. I'm just gonna go right ahead with the black Sharpie marker. The important thing with your papers today, you're gonna have 2 different ones, this one's for the polar bear, is that they both need to be vertical. And remember, vertical is tall up and down. Okay, and then this way your polar bear will fit on your landscape. And we're going to try to fill the page with the polar bear. You don't want to end up with a tiny little polar bear at the bottom. We really want to try to make it large. So what we're going to do first is draw the face of the polar bear, and we want to do that in the center of our paper. And I'm going to start with the nose. So try to find the middle of your paper, and then in the middle you're going to make a small oval for the nose. And then you're going to color that in. And then we're going to make a line, a vertical line going down from the oval, and then you can make a mouth. And I'm going to make a little smiley mouth, and I make sure they're connected. The next step is drawing an oval around the nose and the mouth. And then we're going to add 2 eyes. And I'm just going to make 2 little round circle dot eyes, but if you want to make special eyes, you can do that. And then the next part is we're going to draw a big oval for the body. And it's going to start at the bottom of our paper, and it's going to come up and around the eyes and the nose and then come back down. Okay? So I'm going to start at the bottom. It's like a big upside down U shape. Around and back down. Okay? And that's his body. We're not doing the bottom half. Okay? This is more like a torso and a head study. And then I'm going to put in 2 curved lines for the arms, like so, okay? And then what we're going to do is add 2 little curved ears at the top. And if you want to put in another curve inside a smaller one, you can color that in for the ears. And then we're going to add some details, like claws. So you can make little triangles or little curved lines, whatever you'd like, on the ends of the arms. Okay, and then we're going to add short lines kind of around the U shape to make it look like fur, like the texture of the fur. So I'm going to start at the bottom here, and I'm just going to make short little lines. They're not touching each other. They're not touching the edge. And I'm going to bring a few more in here. It's almost a triangular shape, but you can do it however you would like. I'm also going to put them on the right-hand side, just short little curved lines, just to look like fur, okay? And then I'm going to put a few little lines in the arms. If you want to put them all over your polar bear, you can do that. I'm also going to do them around the head. Just curved little lines. And if you want to bring them in towards the arms, you can do that. You might add a few more, just kind of give it a look and see if you want to add anything. Maybe a few little lines around the nose. Okay. And then when you're happy with it, you're going to cut it out if you have scissors. So we're going to try to follow the outline of the polar bear, getting our cutting as close to the black line as we can. And I'm going to use my helping hand to turn the paper. So remember, when we're cutting, our thumb is always in the top and then 2 or 3 fingers in the bottom. Our blades are pointed away from us, and then our arm is in that L shape. Okay? So I'm going to start at the bottom and cut out the polar bear. Turn it around. If I want to cut off a piece, I can do that too. Makes it a little bit easier when you have large pieces of paper. Alright, and you might want to save these scraps for another art project. All right, so there's our polar bear. We're going to set him aside for now, and we're going to work on the landscape. So you're going to get your second piece of paper, and you want to make sure that it's vertical, the tall way, up and down. And again, you can do this in pencil first if you want, and then trace it with black crayon or black marker or whatever you have. And remember, a landscape is a picture of outside. And this outside landscape is inspired by the Canadian wilderness. Ted Harrison is an artist that did a lot of Canadian pastel colored landscapes, and we're making our landscape look a little bit like that. So we're going to start at the bottom, and we're going to put in a series of curved lines, and it might look kind of like a snowy ground, and then we're going to put in some hills or mountains in the background. So I'm going to start in the bottom left-hand corner and scoot over just a little bit, and I'm going to put in a slightly curved diagonal line. You can decide how you want your lines to be. And I'm not going to have my lines touching each other. So then I'm going to go to the left-hand side and move up a few inches, and I'm going to put in another curved line, kind of mirroring this first line that I did. And then I'm going to put in another one and another one. And then you can look and see if you want to add anything to it. This one I'm just going to retrace part of it. Okay? So there's your foreground, kind of a snowy ground. And then we're going to put in some hills. And you can make your hills or mountains look different. I'm going to make mine rounded. So I'm going to go up towards the top and then come down, touching those curved lines. And then I'm going to put another one here. Okay? And then that's my simple landscape. This line here really at the bottom of the mountains is your horizon line. And up here where your mountains are touching the sky. You can make it nighttime, you can make it daytime, whatever you'd like. And these landscapes are really colorful, so feel free to use whatever colors you would like. I'm going to use a light green, okay? So what I like to do with my crayons is outline the space that I'm going to be coloring in, and I'm pushing hard, not so hard that I break the crayon, but so that I get a nice dark line. And then I'm going to try to color in the same direction, but I'm not putting down as much pressure, so I get a lighter color here. You could also blend colors if you wanted to add a green and maybe a blue, or a green and yellow, or really whatever you want. So I'm going to try to fill this area. I'm going to try to overlap my coloring so that I don't leave any white spaces. Okay? I could use this same color again, maybe further up, or I could choose a different one for each section. I think I'm going to use a pink crayon next. So I'm going to go right along the top, a little bit harder. And if you don't want to push hard, you can also overlap. Overlapping creates darker color. And then I'm just going to loosen up and try to color in the same direction, overlapping the marks that I make. I go a little bit slower when I get to the lines so that I don't cross over them. But in the middle, you can go as fast as you want. You could also do this with watercolor paint or markers. Let's see, maybe a light blue, like a turquoise color. You could also do a pattern. I'm not really doing a pattern, but you could do green, pink, whatever you'd like to do. I might go back to that green color. Darker at the top, lighter in the middle. You could even stand up to do this part. I'm sitting down, but you get a little bit more leverage and freedom when you're standing up to do it, okay? And then I'm gonna work on the mountains. I'm gonna use a purpley color, and I'm gonna do the tops the same. And I'm gonna add in the purple, a little bit lighter, and then I think I might add a second color. And I'm just leaving these kind of loose lines, which I will blend in with a different color. Maybe a violet-y color. And you can see where the colors are overlapping. I think that looks really pretty. A little bit slower when I get towards the lines. Okay, and then for the sky, you can decide what time of day it is. I think I'm gonna do maybe a sunrise. So I'm gonna do yellow first. And I'm gonna blend these colors a little bit too. So it looks kind of like the sun's coming up, and then an orangey color. Like so. All right? So try to cover, your whole paper with color, and then let's see how our polar bear looks in his landscape. I think he looks great. And because we didn't draw a whole polar bear, I'm gonna make sure that I glue him right in line with the bottom, so it's flush with the bottom, okay? You can use any kind of glue. I'm using a glue stick, which we've used in class. You could also use white glue. Just make sure you don't use too much. And I'm gonna roll the glue up just a little bit. We don't want too much. And I'm gonna go around the edges, because I really wanna make sure it sticks. And then in the middle, I like to make an X. And then I'm gonna roll my glue back down and put the lid on because we don't want it to dry up. And then I'm gonna turn my bear over. I'm gonna put mine in the center, but you could put yours to either side. And gently rub the top of your bear. And then to make sure he's really sticking, I turn the whole paper over and we rub the back. And maybe count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when you rub the back, it really protects your design on the front. And then there's our wonderful polar bear. So I hope you enjoyed this week's lesson. See you next time.